The Chicago Bulls schedule is in, and while the schedule starts off extremely rough for the Chicago Bulls, on today's episode, I want to talk about why the rough schedule is actually what's best for the Bulls with the current state of the roster. Plus, we're going to look at another report linking the Chicago Bulls to RJ Barrett, and maybe those talks around RJ Barrett coming to the Bulls aren't as crazy as we initially thought. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And yeah, man, the Chicago Bulls schedule was released yesterday. We released a quick video right after the schedule dropped with the takeaways from the schedule. So if you kind of want more of the ins and outs of the schedule specifically, please go there. We're going to overlap some of that here, but please go and watch that video if you want the details on the schedule. But basically, to just round it all up shortly, the Bulls have a lot of they are up towards the top of the league in back-to-backs. I initially said 11 back-to-backs. It came down to actually 13 back-to-backs for the Chicago Bulls next season, and that's going to be a rough go for the Bulls. That already alone is enough. The Bulls have several long stretches out on the road as well, and then even some of their mini-series are back-to-backs as well, whereas you're having mini-series against team in back-to-back format. So this is going to be a difficult schedule. And then when you look at the first 20 games for the Chicago Bulls specifically, those are all against teams, well, for the most part, all against teams that are really slated to be tough teams coming into this season. Heck, we open up the season against the Pistons, Orlando, and Atlanta. That's three teams that have all improved, right? The Detroit Pistons, a darling team last season. They've made some moves to make that roster better. They did lose Malik Beasley, but that's going to be tough. The Orlando Magic have added Desmond Bane, which is going to bring a lot of the three-point shooting they need. Not solving all of that, but we already know that's a tough team, and we're catching them early in the season before they have a chance for a lot of injuries to hit them. And then the Atlanta Hawks are always a team that we play pretty tightly. But then again, we do have Trey Young's dad on the team, so take that for what you will, right? But, even after that, we have Sacramento, which is still not going to be a cakewalk of a game. And then 2 games against the New York Knicks. Philly, how you feel about Philly? We'll see how Philly ends up. Milwaukee, then Cleveland, San Antonio, Detroit again, right? So, it's a tough schedule. But the thing that I want to talk about is that that's actually good. And in a lot of ways, it's good for the Bulls in a few different ways. If the Bulls started off with a light schedule, let's say the first half of the season was one of the easier schedules in the NBA, there would still be some doubt over exactly how good this team is. With how many expiring contracts that the Bulls have, on top of the trade deadline always being a weapon, I like that the Bulls are going to be tested very early on in this season, not only with being road warriors. Well, they have a lot of home games to start off with as well, by the way. Thank you for the NBA for that one. But, they're going to be tested. And this front office, we always talked about this being an evaluation season in a lot of ways for the Bulls. Evaluating Coby, Giddey. Can you start off the season how you finish? Not with the same statistical output necessarily, but do you still have that balance together? Do you still have that chemistry together? Modest Buzelis, what's your step up going to look like in year 2, right? The starting 5, the end of the season strong. If we start off the season with the same starting 5, we're going to get a test against teams. And the Bulls fans that look at the February schedule and say, or after February, like all those better teams, they weren't giving their best at that point. We're catching teams out. And this is where the narrative is. I'm already going to tell y'all, the narrative is going to switch. The same people who said, I told you guys before, there's like this segment of fans that say that the last 2-3 months of the season don't matter. And then they'll say the first 2 months of the season don't matter as much either because teams are still figuring out their balance. Like that doesn't apply to every team. And it's like when you listen to some people, they'll end up having you think that like it's like 20 games in the season that matters, which we all know is not true. But like you're going to face those tests early. And I think for a team, and again, this goes back to AK and his willingness and how much he actually does want to pivot with this team and actually want to be aggressive in making moves. But the Bulls going to have all the data that they should to know who they feel like they're going to keep out of this core, who are the ones that they want to invest in that are expiring and who they could be willing to move as an expiring contract at the trade deadline. I think that gives the Bulls a lot of flexibility there. So that early test, not only for fans that, had doubts on how the season ended, fair enough, but also for this team. How do you stand up? How do you battle with now coming in with higher expectations in a way and it all being on you? There's no Zach LaVine on this team to say that it's taking shots away from you guys. Coby, you are the number one scorer now. Josh Giddey, you are the point man. A lot's going to go through. You're going to have a lot of that high usage rate because you don't have the on-ball dominant half-court players that we used to have. And Giddey's already shown to have tremendous chemistry with Nikola Vucevic, which is really good too for the balance of this team. So now, what do you have? What are you going to do in that? And so I think there's some moments for clarity in that a lot. And the Bulls have a lot of players on this roster that have a lot to prove. And I think I don't want to miss that, right? When you Josh Giddey, Coby, we just talked about it. Modest is always going to have a chip on his shoulder. But then you look outside of that, Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins, these guys are expiring. They're going to want to prove before going out into the open market, whether they're staying with the Bulls or signing with another team, hey, this is how I can contribute. You want that. Isaac Okoro coming in, right? He was now a player that was marginalized on Cleveland's roster, rightfully so. They were rightfully so to marginalize Isaac Okoro on that team. You're now coming to a team where you're going to have an opportunity. Ayo, you were missing at the end of this season. Missing at the end of the season because of injury, and then even your production dipped off some because you had been dealing with a shoulder injury. Now you get to start off the season with this core, with a roster that really fits your skill set, with needing an on-ball point of attack defender while getting out in transition. Let's see how you play as well. Can you fit in with these players? So it's a lot of players that have things to prove. Noah, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Noah Essegay, Patrick Williams. These are all players that are going to be fighting for minutes on this team. Who comes out on top there, right? So the start of the season being tough for the Bulls, I welcome it. I welcome all challenges, and I actually love the fact that this is a tough schedule to start off with because a lot of those questions that people had could be answered. I won't say that they will be for sure because with the Bulls' luck, we'll go through the season and we'll be right at 500 through the first 25, 30 games of the season, and people are still going to be looking like, well, shit, what the hell is this team? And that's always a possibility as well. But I think more so from the analytical standpoint, from the standpoint of this front office trying and needing to figure out what their pathway going forward is, as well as to help value of some of these players. If Kevin Huerter comes in and finishes the season as hot as he was, both shooting-wise, passing-wise, and even a little defensively to end that season, is he a hot target for you for teams at the trade deadline? Could be. But then again, you still got to trust AK to make the right moves at the right time, be willing to move off of players at the right time. And that has been something that has eluded the Bulls with this front office for quite a while, right? Like we all know that. And so, I said it yesterday. Yesterday's topic was with early success and meaning early amount of wins, winning more games than what you were last season, make AK fall back into the trap of, hey, let's keep all these guys together and not change much. Or would he be smart and figure out, hey, we got out to a hot start. Zach Collins' trade value is greater than anything that we've seen before in a while. We can probably get a protected first for him. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but if that does come about, to me, you got to make that move. Not to say that Zach Collins is bad, not that at all. Not to say Kevin Huerter is bad, but for a player that averaged 13 points per game for you last season, for the Bulls specifically last season, on 43% shooting and 37% shooting from three, that's a player that teams, especially looking for shooting heading in to the playoff run, could want, depending on where the Bulls are. Now, I say this, if somehow the Bulls have lucked up and they are near 500, near that trade deadline, I don't know if AK trades anybody unless it clearly makes the team better. He's not going to just be looking to stack assets. I don't just see this front office as a stacking assets front office, if that makes sense. Unless that, again, they don't view that player as being part of the future, while the calls on there are getting to a point where you just can't, you got an offer that you can't pass up. So, we'll see. Early test is good. Back-to-backs are going to be a little bit rough, but for whatever it's worth, and I don't know if that's because the Bulls are in the Midwest and our travel miles are automatically starting off a little bit less than some other teams from actually on the East Coast or West Coast, because we're in the middle of the country for the most part, further east than the middle. But, if that's the thing, but the Bulls are always up there high on the level of back-to-backs. Now that the circus trip is gone, that's come down a little bit. There are several years where the Bulls were like number 1 or 2 in the number of back-to-backs. Now, that's not this season. We're more towards the top middle, so still the top of the league, but middle of the top where we are as far as the number of back-to-backs, but it's still going to be a test. And this is what we say a lot of times in the season. The Bulls, each season has its own little mini series, its own little mini test when you look at how the schedule goes. Now, of course, this can change. It will ebb and flow as the season goes on, just because of teams having injuries, living up or living down to the expectations, all those type of things that you got to factor into that. But seeing how things are going to play out is really fun, and we'll see how that continues to go for the Bulls. And things are going to be real interesting here. But in the schedule release, one thing I did not cover in the schedule release video that I do want to cover now is all the Easter eggs that were in the schedule. So I just want to list these off first, right? So first, Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks action figure was on sale again because he got traded, and it was next to Los Angeles Lakers Luka Doncic action figures. LeBron James taking a break to chat with two girls. International Women's Day meme. There you go on that one. Dwayne Wade, the scary statue. They had a action figure of that, which scared Benny the Bull. Hilarious. Woj in the bargain bin. There you go on that one. A Pope Leo-inspired Lego set. Again, the new Pope from Chicago, which is really good. There's some really good Easter eggs in this, Wemby being in aisle 51, being the alien. Like, it was just really fun. The Bulls always do the schedule release really, really fun. And it's just, let's not make the schedule release the most fun thing on the season, though. Let's not do that, right? So the Bulls had fun with it. I think we're going to continue to have fun this season. This is a very important season, again, transitionally for the Chicago Bulls. And we'll see what happens here. There's going to be a lot of, hopefully, questions that get answered over the course of this season. And then as AK and Eversley still go down this new direction and path that they started, we'll see how that shakes out for this team. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Now, we talked a little bit about a couple of weeks, I think it was earlier this week or maybe late last week, in regards to RJ Barrett, Patrick Williams trade talk. It was initially started by Joe Cowley. Brett Siegel of Clutch Points also pointed it out. And it seems like that there is more legitimate interest, reportedly, to this, that the Bulls did actually have trade talks with the Toronto Raptors around RJ Barrett. Now, we don't know when that happened in the offseason. That could happen early in the offseason. It could happen later in the offseason. We don't know if those trade talks went left via or because, whatever happened. But it reportedly was some legitimate interest in a deal that would send RJ Barrett to the Chicago Bulls, and Patrick Williams being one of the assets going back to Toronto for RJ Barrett. Now, it wasn't a one-for-one trade. That wasn't it. The Bulls would have to send something else back. And this is something that's interesting because sometimes these talks that happen in the offseason don't necessarily, well, they can pop up as the season goes on. Right now, we don't know. Right now, we have heard several times that Patrick Williams is still absolutely on the trade block. Him and Nikola Vucevic. They understand the Bulls that it's going to be difficult to move either one of these players, but they are players that are actively on the trade block. No more of this, hey, we may listen to some calls. No, these are players actively on the trade block, reportedly. So here's the thing. And I know I have a different mindset on this than Bulls fans. I already know from the first time we talked about it, right? But the thing is, depending on how that deal were to shake out, I'm not necessarily against it. And here's my thinking behind it, right? And maybe this is the thinking behind the Chicago Bulls with it too. RJ Barrett brings production at the three. No question about it. He can slide into that three and he can give you production. People saying that RJ Barrett is like some terrible player. Listen, I'll tell you this. I know he's not the best defensive player at all. And some would say he's not good defensively at all. But he was 27th in the league in scoring last year. He's been top 20 to 25 in the league in scoring each of the last 3 years. When you look at the Bulls, and especially the new transition, heavy offensive style that we have, you can make some sense of that, right? I still think, and him being 1 year ago after being traded to Toronto initially, he was 39% three-point shooter. Now, that did not maintain after his initial trade to Toronto last year. He fell back down to being a 35% shooter. Overall, in 2023-24, combining between New York and Toronto, he was a 36% three-point shooting, taking 4 of those shots per game. Take that for what you will. Ability to spread the floor. But one thing that RJ Barrett is great at is in transition. His ability to attack the rim is something that we don't really have on this team anymore. With Zach LaVine being gone, Modest can do it, but the frequency of Modest was down a little bit. I would love to see Modest do that a lot more this season. Again, that's the aspect of this that matters. But if the Bulls, and this is the way that I'm contextualizing this in my head, please sound off on it down below, is that if the Bulls are this team that going towards the playoffs or going towards the trade deadline are looking like a team that's trending to be 500 or nearly above, if you can flip Patrick Williams from RJ Barrett, I'm all for it. RJ Barrett, who only has 2 years left on his deal, if you trade for him in the middle of the season, it means you have 1.5 years of RJ Barrett before he's an unrestricted free agent. That gives you the time if you need to bring Noah Essegay along a little bit slower. Here's another thing that plays into it. While RJ Barrett has played a lot of small forward over the last few years, we know that he is capable of playing the two. And if you do lose Coby White in the offseason, knock on wood, don't want to see that happen. I can see the Bulls rationalizing it as maybe insurance in case Coby White doesn't come back. Again, he doesn't bring the scoring that Coby White does, the multitude of scoring that Coby White does. He doesn't get hot from three like Coby does, those type of things. But in fairness, and this is the thing, we're trying to have an object conversation about it, RJ Barrett has been a little less streaky than Coby White at times, right? And again, I'm trying to rationalize this from the point of if the Bulls are really looking into this, why they could be. I want to be clear. I'd much rather keep Coby White here. Yeah, he hasn't had the scoring seasons that RJ has, but he's been in much different scenarios and situations. You look at the three-point shooting for their careers. Coby White's a career almost 37% shooter. RJ Barrett only a career 35% three-point shooter, basically. Now, the difference of percentage definitely does matter there, especially when you look at the fact that Coby, on average for their careers, has taken almost 2 three-pointers more a game than RJ Barrett. So there you have on that one. But there's that thought in it as well that you would have to look at. And so I think that, if this is something the Bulls are really looking into, and I want to make sure I'm saying this as a big if this is something that the Bulls are looking into, I can understand it on paper. Because again, what we heard as far as the presented trade from Siegel a couple of weeks ago was Patrick Williams, Javon Carter, and the Portland first round pick, which is lottery protected, or no, it's top 14 protected, right? So even if you do get that pick back, it means that the Trailblazers made the playoffs, which means that it's a lower first round pick, which is fine, right? You can still find great value there, and I think it would matter which draft. For example, if that were to convey in 2026, if it looks like it's likely to convey, I'm keeping that. The 2026 draft is deep. I think you can find damn near a starter level player outside of that. If it's 2027 when it looks like it's going to convey, then I'd be more apt to give up that for a player in RJ Barrett. Again, just thinking about it all. And so it just comes down to how you view RJ Barrett, how you view the risk of it. Again, the offset, he is making more than Patrick Williams, but he's making it at 2 years less. So you get off that deal 2 years earlier than what you would Patrick Williams' deal. That entices me a little bit in on that, right? RJ Barrett, and again, the question is, again, the position thing of it. RJ Barrett has gone from a player that basically split his time between small forward and shooting guard to a player that now, over the last couple of years, has played more small forward and power forward than shooting guard. And that, of course, is team dependent and lineup dependent and those type of things. I don't want to see RJ Barrett, even at 6'7", play power forward here. But then again, it is a Billy Donovan coach team. He could play center for all we know. But that interest seems like it was legitimate. And is this something that starts back up in the season for the Chicago Bulls if they look and if that deal's still on the table? Now, deals can also absolutely change. Whereas the Toronto Raptors may have been interested. That's why knowing when this talk happened would have made a lot more sense. Was this before they got Colin Murray-Boyles and he got to them in the draft? Was it after because if it was after they drafted Colin Murray-Boyles, then I would think that this trade could be more still in if they decided to reactivate these trade talks. If it was before Colin Murray-Boyles, I don't know if they still are interested in it because of Colin Murray-Boyles' defensive upside. And that's basically what you're hoping the best for Patrick Williams with some shooting as well. And so that's the thing of it. Or if it's just the fact that they want to get off RJ Barrett's money. They want to lessen that money up a little bit. You do have Javon Carter, who's an expiring, so you come off some of that money. You still have to pay Patrick Williams for longer. But in coming off some of that money plus the additional first-round pick, is that what incentivizes them in this trade, right? So we'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting. Again, not a trade that I'm saying, oh, my God, I'm head over heels. Let's do this trade. But it is one that, depending on the situation and the state of where the teams are, I can see where you're going with this type of move. And I think that's where I stand on it now. Not to say that it's one of those, I don't agree, but I can understand it. And if it were to happen, okay, cool. But now what does that mean for players like Julian Phillips, like Dalen Terry? What does that mean in how you view Noah Essengay? Are you viewing him more as a 5? Are you viewing him more as a player that may not start within his first 2 years? What does that mean for Coby White, right? So it raises a lot of questions while adding another 20-point per game score for a 9-point per game score. It on paper, he's also a better rebounder than Patrick Williams, right? Much better rebounder, averaging 6 rebounds per game and almost 6 assists. Like, RJ Barrett isn't a terrible player. He's a flawed one. And is that one that you want to deal with those flaws? I don't know. Now, if you can get RJ Barrett and Isaac Okoro to do a fusion dance a la Dragon Ball Z, I'm more in on that move at that point in time. So, but anyway, let me know what you guys think on that down below. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.